So I just got the message that my new camera is available to pick up. So I'll be back in a sec. We got the things. Let's unbox these. And here we are. This is a Sony A7IV. And this is the Sony 20mm f1.8G lens. These were always the plan. I was gonna get an A7IV with this lens and another lens, but that lens is very expensive and Black Friday deals were actually pretty good, so I was like, why don't I just get the camera and one lens and then I'll just get the second lens at some point a bit later. So that's sort of the plan at the moment. Anyway, let's open this up. Okay, so we have, this is actually a very similar format of box to my Panasonic camera. Alright, so we have some documentation. Now this is interesting. There's charging cables here for like North America, UK, and Australia. Which I didn't realize this came with a charger. So that's actually nice if it did. But we're gonna find out in a sec, I guess. So that's a surprise. A welcome one. But a surprise nonetheless, because I was gonna buy a dual charger when I got a second battery. But maybe I don't need to. We'll see. Whoa, it's looking fancy. Okay, so first thing that I'm never gonna use is it has the actual camera, the A7IV camera. It's not just like a generic Sony one. So that's pretty cool. And it is a nice leather, I guess. Or it's probably fake leather, but I'm not gonna use it. We have whatever this is. I don't know what this is. There's so much in here that I was not expecting. I was expecting to be the body and the battery. That's it. But maybe there'll be more. So in here we have a USB-C to USB-A cable. Nice. So that would be for charging the camera or connecting the camera to the computer, because it can do both power delivery directly to the battery. So you can actually run this via USB-C and it'll drain super, super slowly. But also you can use it as a webcam straight through USB, which is really nice. So then I don't need another capture card if I want to use both cameras at the same time. So that's nice. I kind of half expected that. And then the other little, these are nice little, like, it feels very premium, which makes sense. This is like kind of a professional camera. So this feels like a battery. That is a battery. It's heavy. So there's the NP-FZ100 batteries. This is like Sony's like standard battery now for these types of cameras. So that's cool. We have what looks like it could be another one, but it is way lighter, so it's not that. Huh. So it's basically just a USB power adapter. So you plug this end into the wall, plug this in, and then this is just USB-C to charge the camera directly, like to charge the battery that's in the camera. That's interesting. I was not expecting that. So I guess I will have to probably get an actual battery charger once I have more than one battery. And then that is all, apart from the obvious. So we're gonna get this out. And it's all wrapped up in this nice like fabric. I don't know what it is. It's so exciting. Alright, here we go. Oh. It's one thing that I actually noticed about this, because I actually did have a quick test of an A7IV at a camera shop a while ago, just because I wanted to see what 24mm look like on this. So they let me try it and just like see what it would be like, whether 24mm was wide enough for vlogging. And the first thing I noticed is how big it felt. Like the camera is so much bigger than the Panasonic G85. So it'll definitely be a little bit to get used to, because it is significantly bigger, but I'm sure I'll get used to it pretty quick. And it doesn't have a battery in it, or an SD card, so it's probably not that heavy now, but like put a battery in it, it'll feel a bit heavier. So yeah, here's the, ready for this, the full frame sensor. Get the light on it. Oh, look at that. That's gonna be so nice. Full frame sensor compared to the micro four thirds that I've got on this camera. Literally double the size. So basically the A7IV, or the A7 series without an S or an R on it. So there's basically how Sony has their A7 series. They have their A7 series. So this is the A7 Mark IV. They have the A7S series, which they're up to Mark III. The A7S III, very popular camera when it comes to video, particularly with YouTubers and stuff like that. It is like the YouTube camera, basically. And that is more video focused. It can do faster frame rates at all resolutions up to 4K, and just in general is way better for video. Whereas the A7R series, of which they're up to 5 now, they actually recently announced the A7R5. That's the more photography-based series, which is a higher megapixel count on the sensor and more photography features compared to the A7S series. And then the A7 is just in the middle there. It's a hybrid camera, as they sort of call it. So it can do pretty well with video and photo, but obviously not the best at either. But definitely good enough, significantly better than what I've got right now. This is very customizable when it comes to all the custom buttons and stuff like that. So on-off switch on the top here. We have a record button, which is basically just another custom button, because I'll probably change that to something else, because I'll just use the shutter to record. That's just a setting to change. And then we have another custom button on the top. The regular, we have a dial on the front, a dial on the back. That would be for your aperture and shutter speed. And then on the top there is also another lockable dial, so you can turn this and you can lock it down. So maybe I'll use that for like audio or ISO or something like that. On the back, another custom button up here, menu button, another custom button, AF on, which I'm pretty sure you can change as well to something else. Same with this one, you can map these to whatever you want, but they do have defaults. They have a little joystick, which I'm actually really happy about, particularly for taking photos. If you're moving your focus point around, you can just use the little joystick without having to do anything, basically. Can you function menu button? So that just brings up the quick function menu. The little D-pad here, obviously it has buttons like up, down, left, right, but it's also a wheel. So you can set that as a dial to something. I think a lot of people set it to ISO, but I could set it to something else as well. And then the trash can button, or rubbish bin as we would call it in Australia, is just another custom button. So plenty of customization there, and I'll go into the settings later. I don't think I'm really going to go into this video. This will be more like an unboxing first impressions. Really quick, these little dangly things, first of all, so dumb. Just do it like some camera companies are on lock, and even Sony has made their FX3, FX30. They both have like built-in little loops, like just into the body. There's nothing dangling off the end. To be fair, these don't really move by themselves. They don't like jiggle around, but still I'm going to take them off. They're not useful. On the side, we have the memory card door. Top slot is CF Express Type A and SD card, and then the bottom slot is just for SD cards. So now that I'm actually getting a CF Express Type A, I wasn't planning on getting a CF Express Type A card because it's unnecessary. Like a V90 SD card is fine for pretty much everything on this camera, I'm pretty sure, and V60 can do most of it. However, if I'm getting a $300 memory card for free, I will 100% use it. So, and then it also saves me having to buy another V90 card so soon, because I already have a 64 gig one. I was worried if that was going to be enough, but if I can use both, or even if the CF Express is enough, then that's great. On the bottom, obviously, just battery door. Empty, of course, because the battery is on the... Actually, I can just put the battery in here. I can't see anywhere where you could have a cord from a dummy battery come out, which is interesting, because on this camera and on the Nikon D3100, they both had some way of getting that cord out of that so you can have the door closed. Whereas I can't see anywhere to do that. So maybe if you run a dummy battery, you just have to have the door open or take the door off, which seems kind of dodgy, but okay, fair enough, I guess. And then I/O. This is definitely good, especially compared to this camera. Now, one thing they did with the microphone port is they put it above the screen, so the screen can fully articulate, and it's not going to get in the way of the mic. Well, the mic's not going to get in the way of the screen. Whereas this one is literally like, it's like halfway down. It's like here. So it's like right in front of the screen. If I have the screen out like this, the mic is like here. So it's not only covering some of the screen, but it's also in the way, so I can't move the screen freely. Whereas if you just have a mic plugged in, you can do whatever you want with the screen and it's fine. And these are all just like relatively solid doors, so that's also pretty good, I guess. It's not, they're like doors that like stay open. Now they are like a soft-ish plastic, but you know, they're doors, they're not flaps like on this camera. Full-size HDMI, love that. Micro HDMI, which is on this camera, not a fan, and I know it is well known to be prone to breaking. Directly under the mic port is a headphone port, so you can monitor your audio and have a mic in separately, and that's just a good thing to add. The last door covers the USB-C port, which is great for both power and data, and like I said, you can stream directly and use it as a webcam through that USB-C port, which is nice, and then as well as charge the battery. And then there's just a micro USB port, which apparently is Sony's like their multi-interface thing. It just looks like a micro USB port. So I'm not quite sure what that's about. So that's pretty much it for the camera without turning it on. Oh yeah, did I mention that it's 33 megapixels? I think I didn't mention that. Yeah, so it's 33 megapixel full frame sensor, can do 4K up to 60, but the 60 does have a crop. It has an APS-C crop. It's just like a 1.5-ish times crop, but all the other shooting modes don't have a crop, so they're just full frame. You can shoot up to 4K 30 in full frame, but 4K 60 is cropped. And you can shoot up to 120 FPS in 1080p, but just not in 4K. Okay, while that's charging, let's unbox the lens. It has been opened. I actually did open it after I got home because I had like 10 minutes and was like, I'm not going to open the camera box because it is sealed, but this was already open, so I just wanted to get it out and have a bit of a look at it. But more documentation. Now these G lenses from Sony, they come in this little like bag, I'm pretty sure. The G Master lenses, I think, come in a more permanent sort of bag, one that you would actually want to carry a lens in maybe. But, you know, nice to have, I guess. In the bottom of here, we also have the lens hood, which I will use because at the moment I don't have any filters, so definitely going to want the lens hood, especially outside. And then we'll get it out of here, up on the bubble wrap. Now this is the Sony 20mm f1.8 G lens. So their G there, like it's black G. If the black around the G was red, and it'd be a G Master lens, like the 24mm 1.4. The G Master series is Sony's like highest tier of lens, basically. Like they have a whole series of primes, they have some zooms, and they're just extremely high quality, very expensive, but if you want the lowest aperture, you're gonna have to go with a G Master. Like the 50mm goes down to 1.2, the 35, 85, and 24 all go down to 1.4. 135 goes down to 1.8, but at 135, I think that's fine. And all of the G Master zoom lenses are f2.8 as well, whereas any non-G Master ones won't go down that low with aperture. But this one, I've seen a bunch of reviews about this, and a lot of people were really impressed by how similar this is to the 24mm G Master lens, which everybody loves. So that's one of the reasons why I wanted this. The other is because it'll be a great multi-purpose lens for vlogging as well as photography and, you know, filming these sort of videos. It'll be slightly wider than this because this is at 12mm right now, but we do have a crop, and of course 12mm is actually 24mm on full frame equivalent, so it's slightly bigger than the lenses that I'm used to, but for a full frame lens it's actually pretty small. So it has focus ring, feels pretty nice. Again, I don't have much to compare it to, just what I've used, but it definitely feels better than a lens that's probably a third the price of this. We have an autofocus manual focus switch, which is nice to have, so then you don't have to program a button on the camera to do it, because these cameras don't have a default button or a switch or anything on them to change between auto and manual focus. But if the lens has it on it, then that's perfectly fine. There is a custom button right here, which you can program to do pretty much anything. Default is set to focus hold, where if you press it down, it'll just keep the focus wherever it was at the time you pressed it. And then this is really cool. I'm really keen to try this feature, and this is the aperture ring. So right now it is clicked, so it has clicks. You can probably hear that, and it'll go all the way from f1.8 all the way up to f22, and then if you go a little bit further, snap it into the A mode, then it'll be entirely controlled by the camera. So you could either just control it via the dials in the camera if you're shooting in manual mode, or you can let the camera control it if you're not in aperture priority or manual. And the other switch on here is to control whether that has clicks or not. So if we click it back into manual mode, let's say, I can turn it here and there's no clicks anymore. That's the sound that you can hear is just it hitting the edge all the way at either extreme. So having it declicked is very good for video. So if you want to do exposure changes or depth of field changes without it click, 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 and it going in steps, like you don't really want to do that. You want it to be nice and smooth. So if you want to do smooth aperture changes, that's what that's for. And I think probably what I might do with this camera, when I'm, let's say, vlogging, on this camera I currently have it in shutter priority with aperture and ISO completely auto, which is fine, but I'm pretty sure on this camera I could set it to manual mode and still have auto ISO, because I can't do auto ISO on manual mode, which is weird on this camera. Don't know what that's about. But if I set it to manual mode with auto ISO, or maybe not auto ISO, maybe I could just set the ISO and just have it like easily accessible on a dial. And then I can control exposure with the aperture ring, because that is really easy to see and feel when you're changing it, and it's not like, you know, you don't really have to look at the screen if you don't need to. That's the lens. Let's put it on the camera, and we'll have another look at the sensor. So I don't want to get any dust in this, so I'm going to be pretty quick with it. Alright, so let's get both them off. And then we got the white dot and the white dot. Ooh, it's very firm, that lock. So if I unlock it, and this is actually something that's new to me, is the unlock lens button actually down here. So you would actually use your right hand to do it if you're holding the camera normally, whereas on my G85 it's over on this side, which is easy to do if you're, you know, holding it like this. It's actually pretty easy to change the lens like this, whereas this one, I guess you're meant to hold it in your right hand to change lenses. But if I press that down, that's like a lot. I'm surprised how like tough that is to actually like move. It's got a lot of resistance. It is obviously a very well built system, so that's fair. Anyway, this is what the whole thing looks like, and this is basically as small as it's gonna get. Now this is definitely bigger than this camera. Again, I keep comparing it, but that's just that's what I know. It's a lot bigger than what I'm used to, but this is about as small as it's gonna get, because this lens is pretty small for a full frame lens, and the next lens that I want to get is a Tamron 35 to 150 f2 to 2.8. And if you know anything about what those numbers mean, that lens is going to be kind of chunky. And it is. It's a big lens. One thing too, I forgot to mention this. Mode dial, right? You know, you have your auto, your manual, your aperture, shutter priority, programmed auto, and your custom modes. But then you also have, see like right there, that's in photo mode. And then on the front, we have a little dial, so I can move. Now it's in video mode, and go again, now it's in S&Q mode, which is slow and quick mode. So you can have all of those custom settings for photo and video and slow and quick. So you can actually have 9 custom settings. We are now XAVC-S 4K 25p 140 megabit per second 422 10-bit. Now that's a mouthful. Here we are recording vlog test. Okay, so it's a couple days later from when I filmed all that. There's a few things that I have noticed, some good things, some bad things. One that I actually only just figured out now, and it's not ideal. Well, I can shoot in 422 10-bit. That was one of the really cool things about, you know, a camera of this level, is you can shoot 422 10-bit color. But I only just found out that the free version of DaVinci Resolve doesn't support 10-bit. So either I would have to transcode my videos, all of my videos, to like ProRes or something like that just to edit them, or buy the $500 studio version of DaVinci Resolve, or like use Premiere Pro or something like that. Some sort of editing software that would support 10-bit, or I just shoot in 420 8-bit, which, to be fair, it's still going to be a huge improvement over what I have been using. The other benefit of shooting at a slightly lower bitrate is I have more room on the SD cards because the files are slightly smaller. So before, on this 80GB CF Express card at 42210-bit at 25p at 4K, I was getting about an hour or just over an hour of space basically, whereas at 8-bit now I have about an hour and a half. That's good, I guess, just a bit more time. And now I do have both cards in here. I have the 80GB CF Express card and the 64GB V90 SD card. Now for video, I don't think, especially shooting 8-bit, doesn't matter which one I use, I can use the SD card fine. For photos as well, the slower SD card will be fine, unless I'm shooting burst. If I'm shooting at the highest burst rate, I can only shoot like for maybe about 2 seconds before it starts buffering. But then if I shoot the CF Express card, I can literally just hold down the shutter and it just goes. And there's no buffer in sight. So if I do need to shoot very high speed stuff, I'll definitely use the CF Express card for photos. I have pretty much set up all of the the custom settings for video. Now I have 3 video presets basically. Like you have your custom memory settings for video, for slow and quick, and for photo. I've done photo and video. Haven't even been into the slow and quick section yet, which is basically like built-in slow-mo and time-lapse. So that's slow and quick. The downside to using slow and quick for slow motion is you don't get any sound. So if you only want to use it for slow motion, you do not want any sound, that's fine. But if you want there to be sound just in case, then you're better off just shooting it in the regular video modes. And as far as I know, the slow and quick mode, apart from slowing it down for you, there's no other benefits to actually using it over the regular video modes at just a higher frame rate, because the frame rates are the same. You can still go up to 100 or 120 if you're NTSC in Full HD or 1080p, and in 4K you can go up to 60 or 50. I think for the most part I'll shoot like B-roll in 50p and A-roll and stuff like this in 25p. And I will obviously have a look into the S&Q modes, and I will try some stuff, try some time lapses, try some slow motion, but I feel like it's not as useful as, you know, having the 3 photo modes and the 3 video modes. And one thing with the photo modes too is now I can have 3 custom modes, one for manual, one for shutter priority, one for aperture priority, which is so nice. So if I want to do very specific stuff, like for example shoot a panning shot, I can just go into shutter priority and set the shutter speed and the aperture will just do what it needs to do. Although, all that being said, like all of my video modes are manual now because I can have auto ISO. So I don't need to have auto aperture or anything like that. Basically what I'm planning to do in this mode, this is like my main like video mode, 25p 4K, I have it in manual set to 1/50th of a second and aperture wide open, but the aperture is being controlled by the lens because it's an aperture ring. So I can just go all the way down to f22. The ISO went way up. It's now at 12,800. But basically I'll leave it at f1.8 1/50th of a second on auto ISO, and then just if I go outside in the bright sun and I need to turn it down, I can adjust that with aperture. So I think that's sort of the best way to do it when I don't have ND filters or anything like that. And then, again, this camera definitely has much cleaner ISO than my other camera, so I'm okay with shooting auto ISO for a bit, at least until I start shooting S-Log3. If I'm shooting an S-Log3, then I'm going to want to probably shoot everything manual. But that's not too big of a deal, unless I'm vlogging. The only time that I would not want to be in full manual is either if I want something to just be super quick and easy, or if I'm vlogging and everything's changing all the time. Whereas if I'm setting it up, like if I'm standing in one spot or have like a studio style setup or putting it on a tripod or anything, I should just be able to go full manual and it should be fine. I'm surprised how hot the camera is getting. Like, I knew that it was going to get hot, and I wasn't really worried about overheating, and it's probably not going to turn off because of overheating, but it does get quite hot if it's on for a while. Even just going through the settings, I noticed when I first unboxed it, and I had just had it plugged in because the battery was almost dead. So I just had it plugged in the whole time, and it doesn't charge while it's plugged in, it just powers it via USB, and it got quite warm just going through all the settings. So that's something that I was a bit surprised by. It's not ideal, but, you know, it'll be fine. I don't think it's really going to cause any issues like hand holding the camera. To be fair, I'm not really going to be holding it with just my hands that much unless I'm taking photos
or handheld video of other stuff. Whereas if I'm filming myself like this, I would normally have a tripod to hold on to, like my GorillaPod at the moment. Or if I'm filming any other stuff, it'll be on my C stand or on a tripod. So I don't think it's going to be much of an issue as long as it doesn't actually overheat. Now, I haven't done any long video tests to see if it is going to overheat. I doubt it though, considering, especially now that I'm only shooting 8-bit, you know, it's a little bit easier processing, I think, on the camera. And I do have a lot of things turned off. Like I've turned on airplane mode and turned off Bluetooth and stuff, because that's not stuff that I'll need most of the time. So I just turn it off to save a bit of battery and potentially maybe some heat. And yes, I did get the CF Express Type A card. This is 80 gigabytes, so it would have been better to get like a 160 or even bigger, but they would have been very expensive, and I didn't have to pay for this because I actually got it as a deal with the camera. So I got this for free, which is nice, considering that it's a $300 memory card. That being said, it's only given me about an hour and a half in 8-bit, so that should be fine. It should be fine. I can't imagine myself shooting more than an hour and a half of stuff at a time. It just means that I'll have to make sure that I'm copying my stuff over and keeping backups and stuff like that, so I don't have to leave anything on the cards ever. But that being said, dual card slots, I can actually have both my cards in like I do now. Right now I've got combined about 2.5 hours left, but at some point I'll probably get like a 128 or 256 gig V90 SD card as well. And then this 64 gig can go into my other camera. So that's sort of the plan at the moment. It's much hard to keep it steady when you're not using a tripod. But I do really like the f1.8. Like, look how blurry that is. If I was vlogging with my other camera at 12mm up like this, first of all, I would have to be back here to have the same sort of field of view. But one, it would be way darker. Two, this wouldn't be all blurry. So it definitely has a really nice look to it. And I'm very keen to do a lot of creative stuff with it. And yeah, that's about it. Definitely going to be some more videos coming about this camera as well. Especially when it comes to photos, I'll probably go and do a bit of a POV photography one as well. And I'm definitely going to do a comparison video between this camera and the G85. So subscribe if you want to see more videos. Like this video if you enjoyed it. Let me know if there's any ideas or anything you want me to try with this camera, or just in general. And I'll see you in the next one. Okay, bye.